I'm meteorologist John Dawson. Welcome back to YouTube. This is the Fox 26 Tropical Update that we format, we gear, we design specifically for YouTube. We're glad you found us. And again, of course, we're here every afternoon, a little bit after 4 p.m. Central Time, giving you the latest on the tropics. And we've got a little bit more to discuss today from the National Hurricane Center as they have begun to get a little bit more interested in a spot out in the Atlantic that we've been watching for the last couple of days. So just a quick review, if you will. There's been a couple tropical waves that we've been interested in, and for sure the Hurricane Center has been keeping an eye on. One of them off of the coast of Africa. This one, not so much of an interest anymore. It's actually kind of fallen apart more than anything else. But the one that was a little bit closer in, we've been watching. Yesterday it was about 1,000 miles from the Lesser Antilles, a little bit closer today, and we're going to zoom in and get a little bit of a closer look. And in the last 6 hours, watch how the convection, those storms have really just blown up and become very active and much stronger and starting to show a bit more organization. There's still not really some very clear, at least from satellite imagery, as far as that organization, but it's starting to get there. And enough so that the National Hurricane Center has agreed that there is a closed low and that the maximum winds are at 35 miles an hour. So this is now officially a tropical depression 7 is what it is given its official name. So TD7 working into the computer models now. And just a reminder, when we talk about our computer models, they really are designed to start having the best output, the best results, the highest confidence in those results once that closed circulation is at the surface, and that is just taken place. So it really needs several runs of these models before the confidence level begins to increase a little bit. But we always are, again, watching them and seeing what they're saying and how they're running and everything like that. So this is the next 5 days worth on several of the models all put together. And again, pretty consistent on what's expected to happen in that 3-day range. You'll see how tight that line, those lines are all together, expecting this to be almost a due westerly track. Not a lot of organization or strengthening, and for sure, not a fast-moving system either, because again, in 5 days, it's still expected to just begin to enter into Puerto Rico and possibly making its way up and into the Bahamas a little bit more. And you'll notice, of course, and this is expected and very common as we get further out towards that 5-day mark, our models start to spread out. There's not nearly as organized or confined in agreement, so they disagree a little bit more. But do you notice the trend on what is expected? Instead of that due westerly track, we begin to see beginning to curve to the north a little bit, or more of a northwesterly track. And again, some of the models picking up on that idea a little earlier than others, but that again, basically what is expected. And at this point, we would expect this not to make it into the Gulf of Mexico. So if you're here in the Houston area, I know that's obviously one of the biggest things you want to know is it going to get into the Gulf? Well, for those folks along the Gulf Coast, I will say at this point, no, we're not expecting it to make it into the Gulf of Mexico. So here are the official numbers from the National Hurricane Center as of that 4 p.m. advisory on Wednesday. The maximum sustained winds at that minimum 35 miles an hour. And the movement right now is at about 13 miles an hour. So that's moving along fairly brisk. It's not a slow mover where it's 5 or 6 miles an hour, but again, it's so far out that there's a lot of time to look at this system, and as it moves, it'll possibly become more organized. And from the official forecast track from the Hurricane Center, it is expected by the time we get to Thursday afternoon, it would be a tropical storm, and Fiona would be the name. So we're looking at a possible tropical storm. But look how these wind speeds remain constant, 45 miles an hour, 45 miles an hour. We're into the weekend, and we're still looking at those max winds at 45 miles an hour and happening all the way into Monday. So you see how far out this is? By the time we get to next week, we're still on the edge of of the Atlantic at this point. So we've got time to watch this to see where it's going to go. We'll let those computer models get a few more runs, and we'll see exactly what the Hurricane Center wants to do with the official cone of where it's headed. But there is going to be some rainy weather, and when the winds are going to be, again, in the lower side of things, not going to be major damaging winds as it continues to move on through to the northern portions of the Caribbean. So we'll switch gears a little bit and we'll talk about one specific model. This is the GFS, or the American model, and we're going to go back. We're looking at it in the same position here where you can see the little bit of a swirl and the rain that's a little bit more organized. That's where 7 is currently located. Let's assume that it becomes a tropical storm. We'll now refer to it as Fiona. We're just going to, again, make some assumptions by what the National Hurricane Center is going with. And now we're still looking at Fiona a little bit more organized, but still not growing all that large and all that strong. That circulation, it's not a bunch of circles moving around on the winds. It's more of a little bit of a curl that we're looking at there. Want to keep an eye on the time here. This is September the 16th, or Friday. When we move a little bit further on with the system, you can continue to monitor where it is. Now we're into Monday, which is basically where the Hurricane Center stops their 5-day track. We're going to extend this out. And again, the confidence always drops down anytime you go past 5 days or so. And we're going to go several days past 5 days. We're going to jump all the way to a 9-day track. So this is going to be possibly next Friday. Not this week, next week. And here we do see a bit more of an organized system. Confidence, not great. It's not extremely high or extremely low. This is definitely something that we could be seeing as far as an organized storm, a stronger tropical storm, maybe even a weak hurricane, but it is looking like it would be on the in the Atlantic still, not into the Gulf of Mexico, and that curvature could still be taking place, so we're not necessarily guaranteeing a landfall. So Tropical Depression 7 just formed on Thursday morning at 10 a.m. officially. So we're very early on with what we expect to happen. If you've downloaded the Fox 26 weather app, like me, when I was sitting and waiting on my H-E-B grocery curbside this morning, I pulled up the Fox 26 weather app a little bit after 10 a.m. and I looked and saw exactly what that forecast track was from the National Hurricane Center. So if you don't have the Fox 26 weather app, get that downloaded. And remember, there's so many different tools that are available on the app. Sometimes you have to turn on and off some of those layers, because if you show everything that it possibly could show you, it would just be a little bit more of an information overload. So that's what I found myself doing this morning, was having to double check and make sure that that tropical layer was activated so that I could see what Tropical Depression 7 was expected to do from the National Hurricane Center. So it's a free download. You can get it on Google, you can get it on Apple. Go to your favorite app store, get that downloaded, and then you can sort of get those tracks immediately. And then, of course, come back here to YouTube, and I'll be keeping you a little bit more involved in the discussion of what's happening. And I'm also beginning to activate my Twitter and Facebook accounts as far as pushing out some of that potentially Fiona information. And of course, if you want to follow me on Instagram, that's great as well. All three of those are at John Dawson, Fox 26. Thanks for finding us today on YouTube. We'll be back here tomorrow afternoon with the latest.